I've got the flywheel, I've got the new clutch, pressure plate and everything ready to go, and I wanted to show you how to set the clearance on the starter. This can be a very aggravating thing that can shut you down for the night racing. So let's get to it. So when you do these, do them kind of like you'll do a head. Go across from each other and do a crisscross pattern. Hey, let me point this out right quick. Your pilot bushing right here, you see that one right there is a bronze one. That's what your input shaft off of your transmission, the front of it is sitting in that. Here's a note, something you can miss. If you're running an engine plate across here, like a 1/4 inch thick engine plate, or if you've just got the ears that go on here to have the mounts down here, either way, if you separate your bell housing back by like a 1/4 inch, from your engine, you need to put the extended length bushing in this crankshaft. And the reason being is this nose right here, it'll still be engaged, but it'll be partially out of it, and it'll put a lot more wear. And eventually what will happen is the front of your shaft of your transmission will it'll start orbiting like this. It'll start walking around some and moving. That's going to create premature failure. It's not going to happen immediately, but you're just going to have overall shorter lives on your transmission, shorter lives on your clutch, and you'll see that when you pull this out, this bushing is just going to look like a disaster. Pressure plate side, down onto it for the clutch. And then we're going to turn this all over. We're going to stick the shaft into the splines. A little bit tricky. One of them need 3-hand type deals. And those splines are really, really tight. Okay, so I'm lined up, all right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick this shaft into that spline, and that's gonna get our clutch in the right place where they'll line up in the car. And so now I got it up there, so it'll kind of hold everything. 3/8 hardware. All grade 8, torques to 35 foot-pounds, I believe. What I do is I just run them all down until they start contacting, and then I'll just start going around it. I'll show that. Until I know I got it bound, I'm just gonna hold and make sure that that's well centered. All right, that's touching, touching, touching. All right, so we're all torqued up. That clutch is good to go. So, starter time. One of the problems that you can have with these starters not engaging correctly is not using starter bolts. The bolts for these, the shoulder on them is sized to fit tight in that slot. No wiggle, no movement. And the reason for that is that keeps that starter from being able to twist and affect, what your clearance is and everything. Make sure you're using starter hardware. And we've got our shims. There's one other thing. We're gonna set the clearance for the drive gear to the flywheel to as close to 40,000 as we can get it. It does not have to be 40 on the number. It could be as tight as 30, as loose as 45, and it would still perform very well. All right, let me show you how we're gonna do that. It's like, how are you gonna measure no? Well, I have cotter pins, all different size cotter pins. I found one that was just a little bit wider for one of the legs. So that leg was about 45,000. And then I just took a hammer and put it on the vise, and I just pinged it down. So I just took a hammer and sat there and I just pinged it down until I got it to 40, or as close to 40 as I could. 39.5, across it. And so now we've got a gauge, and that you can buy pin gauges in all different increments of sizes and stuff. It's just not necessary. Go to Harbor Freight, get you some calipers. You're gonna use these racing a lot. But anyway, and then you can just make size pins that you need by just taking a hammer and smashing them down. You can take sandpaper and you can sand it down, same difference. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start out by just throwing it up there, okay? No shims, no nothing. We're just gonna put it in and see where we're at. Okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna use a pair of vice grips here. I am not trying to clamp this so tight that I break and mar this gear, okay? I'm just holding it. But I'm gonna take, and you can do it under the car. It's just a lot harder to film it under the car. So I clamped on, right? I'm gonna spin this out. All right, so now now I'm in the gear, okay? So I'm in the gear, okay? Now when I'm in the gear, I'm gonna take and I'm gonna pull this gear all the way one way, all right? With one of the teeth straight timed into the middle there. And I've got one. So the gear here is pushing against one of the teeth down. So I'm twisting up on this and pulling back with these vice grips. So I've created as much gap as I possibly could on that other tooth. You know, in other words, I'm fully contacting on this lower part right here because I'm twisting up with this. Now I'm gonna see if my 40 thousandths will fit in there, and it won't quite fit. It's a little bit tight, okay? I can't slide it all the way across. You know, it's just touching the contact in the top of the tooth and it's not sliding down in there. So when I go to do it, I can't get it across that tooth there. It's hitting. It won't quite do it. When I'm a little bit too tight, when it goes to come out, this face right here hits against the back of the flywheel. Now, if you're too far away, it will engage. If you're way, way far away, it won't engage. It'll do what's called skip. You'll be cranking and then it'll lose its place. It'll whir, 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 like that. That's where it skips out. But a lot of times what'll happen is it will jump in, it will engage, but it won't sound right. You know, you'll have this funny like that, and what that is that's where you're too far away and it's walking on the tips of those teeth, and they won't last like that long at all. And what will eventually happen is it will start breaking these teeth off and marring off the tops of these teeth, and then eventually it'll stop cranking that way as well. So we need one shim right here that we're gonna put in. We're gonna check it again. We're gonna loosen this bolt up. We're not gonna take that inside one out. We don't have to. We're gonna take this outside one here out so the starter can't fall off. So you're under the car, you're doing this. You've only got to drop this outside bolt. You don't have to fight to get the starter back up there. Now I think half the reason people don't set these starters correctly is just because it's so difficult sometimes where these starters are and how you're doing them to get them right that it's like, oh, forget it, it'll be all right. See how that back bolt right there, that hole is open, but this one's closed, and so you don't have to take that inside bolt out. You can just slide it in like that. You're gonna put that right back in there through the shim. We're gonna run it back up. We'll see where we're at. All right, so we put one shim in, and you're like, well, that shim's moving it that way, not that way. Well, it's moving it both, because this is on an angle and it's down below it with that circle. As the starter goes down, it moves it out. It doesn't move it out as thickness of a shim. So for example, if I put a 10,000 shim in there, you know, it's not moving it in that direction 10,000, it's only moving in that direction 2 or 3,000 because it's going down instead of just across. All right, so let's see where we're at here. Okay, so I'm gonna take, again, I'm just gonna take, good and tight, I'm taking and I'm twisting up, I've got my hand here pulling up and back. I would do it exactly the same way under the car. I'm gonna slide this in there and see, am I good? I'm not quite there, so let's put one more shim. I think I'm gonna be there with this next one. All right, let's see where we're at. That's what we're looking for. I'm all the way out to where that tooth is rolled off. And that's what I'm looking for right there, y'all. Absolutely. All right, so we're there. So before I forget, let me tighten this thing on down. And I don't normally torque starters. I think these bolts would torque to 25 foot-pounds, but I usually just get them about that tight. Let's see, what else? Oh, how would you know if it was too much? If you're sliding the pin in and it's going all the way across the tooth, and when you wiggle back, you'll feel a gap still in there, you know, so you know that's too much. But rule of thumb here, always when you're starting with a different block, different starter, start with no shims and then add to get to the clearance where you don't go past it, because it's hard to tell when you're past it. It's easy to tell if you're not to it yet, because if you had a 40,000 spin, you wouldn't be able to get it in there. A lot harder when you're past. So always start with no shims. One more point. So it's gonna change as far as the number of shims from block to block. It's gonna change as far as number of shims starter to starter. So every time you break up and change combination between block and starter, do it again, folks. I know it can be a total pain when it's under the car. You know what's a worse pain? Being down at the racetrack, having a good car and not being able to race. That right there gets on my nerves. All right, I hope y'all like this. It was a quick one. This right here, if it saves somebody some headaches, let me know. And of course, if you're not subscribed, Dirt Race Life, y'all.